Breaking news out of Clemson. The Tigers might hire a former Bulldog as the offensive line coach. This makes me happy if it comes to pass. I will talk about that in just a second. Hey, I'm Brian. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. I hope you've subscribed. If you're brand new here, you couldn't have subscribed, but you know what I mean. It's a great way to support the channel. I do appreciate you being here. So Matt Luke, former Georgia player, former Georgia assistant, turned Ole Miss head coach, turned Georgia Bulldog offensive line coach. And I want to tell you something I like about this guy. Other than he has the experience we need at Clemson to fix things on the offensive line. Thing I like about him, they won the national championship. Georgia won the national championship in 2021. And this guy says, I'm calling it quits. Just to clear my head, to spend time with my family. And I can appreciate that. I can't understand how guys can be gone away from their family so much and be shocked one day when their wife leaves them or the kids don't want to speak to them. But this guy is, he's made a lot of money. He says, I'm going to take some time off. He's taken off, a year or two? And Clemson comes calling. Now, whether he's going to be the offensive line coach at Clemson, that is not official. But I am telling you, Tiger fans, this is what I'm talking about. When I throw out that blanket statement that you go out and hire really good, qualified, experienced people on your staff. Now, I know that Clemson didn't fire Matt Austin, that's a former referee, Thomas Austin, without having anyone in mind. But see, just like I told you, there is someone out there who can do a great job who Clemson could go out and hire. I told you this. Sometimes it is that easy. Sometimes it just comes down to you made a bad hire. Maybe you hired someone. I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again. I'm not happy that Thomas Austin got fired. I'm just telling you, it might have been too much too soon. That guy could go on and do great things. I'm not saying that he'll never be a great football coach. I'm not saying that he is not good at being an offensive line football coach, but he is not at the level that Clemson needs him to be at this point. I will truly wish him the best. He's part of the Tiger family. How could I not? Too much too soon. You bring in Matt Luke if he accepts the job. Don't be shocked, especially if we utilize the transfer portal to plug holes along the offensive line until we can strengthen our recruiting prowess at the offensive line position, because right now it's not there. This could be massive for Clemson. Whether you love the Dogs or not, I have some fantastic Dog fans who shows up in my comments section. We take some really good jabs at one another. SEC Dog is one of my favorite. Angie Ledbetter can talk trash with the best of them. I'm not a Dog fan, but you cannot deny that the Georgia Bulldogs can run the football at will. And he was part of that team, coaching that brilliant line that could move the ball at will. Clemson's offensive line, by the way, that's a topic that will really divide a room. I have some of you coming on here saying, oh man, our offensive line, I disagree with you, Brian. Our offensive line was not that bad. Was it elite? Well, no, Brian, but you have too high of a standard. It's almost like I would like for our team to win and at least get back to the playoffs. And you're just still talking about 2018. Sure, I'm thankful that happened, but you realize that was what, 4 or 5 years ago? Are you still going to be like the old timers back in 2006 that was talking about 1981? Yes. Clemson still has the ability to return to being a power. But if you can't fix it now, don't wait until we go 7-5, 2 or 3 seasons in a row. And then go, man, I wonder what happened. Fix it now. Hiring someone like Matt Luke can do that for you. Going in and fixing that offensive line that's not elite. And it'll give Cade time. And if Cade is still making poor decisions at times, then we have to deal with that. Yesterday, I mentioned that Tyler Grisham, he has to be next. But, Brian, he has the recruits coming in. And if he has the recruits coming in, they might leave. Or, Brian, Cade didn't have time. And he was forcing the football. And the wide receivers they didn't have time to get open because he was having to force it. And I'm going to pause right now and tell you, our wide receivers, they were wide open several times this year. Throughout the season, every one of them except for maybe Troy Stellato, which could catch everything. And they were dropping passes when they were open. So my thought is maybe we should go ahead and make this change now instead of wasting people's eligibility like we've wasted eligibility over the past 2 or 3 years at least, and get the proper people in place right now. And if someone at some high school, no matter how good they are, says, well, you know what, I'm not coming to Clemson because Coach Grisham's not there anymore, you'll be the same guy who hits the transfer portal in a few years just because, well, you haven't developed like you thought you were going to develop. But let me tell you this. If our offensive line gets it together like I think it's going to get it together, if Matt Luke comes to Clemson, this is going to be crazy. This could be crazy good for Clemson. This makes me feel good. I just wish, once again, I don't want anyone fired. And maybe I have to eat crow. Folks, I'll gladly eat crow if my Tigers will start winning again. But unfortunately, I've been eating really good, meaning I've been really right about a lot of what's went on, which means we've lost. I hope that we can lock this guy down and he can bring that killer, dominant, top-tier SEC. And yes, I get tired of hearing about the SEC too, but you can't help but say that Georgia is really good along the offensive line front. And that guy was part of that national championship who finally broke through the glass ceiling. Couldn't do it since 1980. Finally did it. He was part of that team. There's something special about that. Us at Clemson, we should know that. You remember 2016, we won the national championship? You kept pinching yourself going, no, we actually won it. I know I was. It seemed like it was never going to happen. He was part of that. He's part of championship football. This could be a great move. And this goes back to experience, worthwhile experience, elite experience. Folks, this could be great for Clemson. I'm not going to promise you that all of a sudden we're going to become the greatest offensive line in the world in 2024. Things will be better. Give the guy a few years. Oh, my God. You can run plays at will, especially when it comes to pass and run schemes. I'm going to get into the comment section. Once again, if you've subscribed, thank you so much. This channel, I said that yesterday, since the beginning of the season, this channel has tripled. In fact, late last night, I went over 3,000 subscribers. I started this channel a year ago. And before the season started, I had about 1,100. So we're right at triple the subscriptions. Thank you so much. Very, very kind words from everyone. And I appreciate you coming in here. I do want to give a quick shout out to sponsor of the show, 4puttcarts.com. The link is below the video. They are a snack and beverage cart service for special events and golf courses. Now, we're in the cooler months. Duh. So you're probably not hitting the golf course. There's probably not the golf tournaments going on where you're at, but they also special events. There's a lot of special events. Let me tell you this. You want to see someone run around in circles upset about, what are we going to do about the drinks, the beverages, everything? Get them out there. You're going to have a good time. You need someone, you know what, guys? If you want your wife to not worry about some type of Christmas party y'all are throwing right now, and you just, you want some drinks, you want just some regular snacks, just something, and you're tired of her losing it, and now you're paying for it, get them out there, right? 4puttcarts.com. Reach out to them, let them know you heard about them from me. SC Rocket XR1 is in here. He is a member of the Clemson Football Live channel. There's a join button below the video if you want to support on a monthly basis. $3 or $5 per month. I have it in there, my friend. If you want to support on a monthly basis. A lot of you in here. Stoopsified, it's good to see you. Jonathan Benton, it's good to see you in here. Loggerhead TV, Nate is gone. Bo is gone. Who's next? Jeremiah's Payne. It's good people in here. Let's talk about it. 100 people on here right now. I know you're probably, your day's finally over. Your week is over. Y'all, can you believe it's already 8 days after Thanksgiving? And you're like, Brian, what does that even mean? 8 days? Why do you even bring that up? That means we're that much closer to Christmas. And that means that Thanksgiving's over a week behind us already. Time flies. Wow, it's crazy. So let's get back to this. We're talking Matt Luke, former Georgia football player, former Georgia assistant, former Ole Miss head coach, former, again, offensive line coach at Georgia. 2021, they win the national championship. He says, I'm done. I'm going to spend more time with my family right now. I'm just going to clear my head. I'm burned out. I like that he said that. Folks, if you had the money to just say, you know what, I'm burned out. I'm not saying I'm retiring right now, but I'm burned out and I have the money to do it. Would you do it? This guy did. There's something about that I like. Go get that competitive edge back and decide when you're going to come back. He could possibly be the offensive line coach. It's not a done deal at Clemson. This is what we need, folks. This is what Clemson needs along that front at Clemson University. Our defensive line, our linebackers, they're revered. Our defense played quite well this year, especially the front seven. And then once the freshmen got involved, it's hilarious, the freshmen got involved. Guys like Khalil Barnes, Avion Terrell coming in, tearing it up, showing up guys who are, juniors, seniors, grad students. Clemson's defense looked fantastic this year. That's one thing that I've been trying to do is like separate the wheat from the tares. Don't make a blanket statement. It's easy to do that when you're talking about Clemson's football season this year, but overall, our defense played incredible this year. I'm not saying that they didn't mess up here and there. No, everybody's going to mess up here and there, folks. But our offense has been our Achilles heel. There's what did I just say there? Achilles heel. There's no intensity along the offensive line. And a guy like Matt Luke coming in, could be the key to return the brutality of Clemson's offensive line. Think about those championship offensive lines that we've had. Think about the guys along the front that you didn't mess with. Sure, you had Trevor Lawrence. Sure, you had Deshaun Watson. But those guys were working hard. Those guys were playing their brains out. And since Caldwell left, he retired. He called it quits. We definitely haven't seen anything worthwhile. This is what I have always beating the drum about. Like, I'm not even beating it with a regular drumstick. Like, I brought a sledgehammer. Clemson has the program and the ability. Think about this. This guy would actually consider coming out of a short retirement, short time off, to come to Clemson. Does that not speak volumes to you of the reach and the power that Clemson still has if we will continue to make the right moves? It speaks volumes to me. It speaks volumes to me that Clemson could contact Matt Luke, a Georgia Bulldog, who has taken a few years away from the game, and that he would consider coming to Clemson, South Carolina. Folks, I am telling you, Clemson can revamp this thing right now if they will. That's why I am saying, look, I don't want people fired. And maybe y'all are right. Maybe Grisham's not that bad. Maybe it's just we've hit a string of bad luck of recruiting wide receivers for the past 4 or 5 years who everybody wanted. Who for some reason doesn't pan out or they end up injured. Maybe. Maybe the reason that E.J. Williams didn't pan out was because he was overrated. Maybe Frank Latson didn't pan out because he was overrated. Maybe Justin Ross was never fully rehabbed because he nearly broke his neck. And okay, I can understand that. But if it was so much in his mind, why would he declare for the NFL and try to get into the NFL if you're afraid you're going to break your neck? If you're going to break your neck in college, you're definitely going to break your neck again or whatever it is, fracture in the NFL. My Lord, their light hits would still send a regular human being through a wall. Maybe it's just a coincidence that Antonio Williams could catch the ball better right out of high school than he could this year before he got injured. And that's the story of a lot of guys. Maybe it is. Or maybe this being, I believe, Grisham's very first coaching gig, maybe he needs to grow as a coach and maybe come back to Clemson later. That's a mouthful. Folks, Clemson has that reach. Clemson has that reach, and this proves it. This is exciting news. I hope it happens. I hope Matt Luke comes to Clemson. I hope he comes to Clemson. I hope he brings that brutality that you have seen at Georgia along the offensive line. Bring it to Clemson. Can you imagine Clemson if their offensive line was really good? Can you imagine what Maffa and Shipley could do if they had an offensive line that could actually, everything didn't have to be simplified for them. They could actually run their assignment across the board. Can you imagine that? I can. It would be incredible. Got a bunch of people in here. Still Gamble's in here. Member of the Clemson Football Live channel. Jamie Stone. So you headed to get some Mexican. So you was live. Where are you going tonight? You know I live in the same area. Luke would definitely help your O-line. Allow him time to recruit his time. Look at that, dog man forever. That's a Georgia fan telling you that, right? Billy Cole, wasn't this guy fired at Ole Miss? Yeah, he was fired because he was a head coach. He became the head coach there after the whole Hugh Freeze scandal went down. Just because a guy doesn't make it out as a head coach doesn't mean he's not good at his position. Because after he was fired at Ole Miss, Georgia hired him, and he was the offensive line coach when they won the national championship the first time a couple of years ago. So this is definitely a good hire. This is not one of these turds floating around the toilet of college football coaching circles that somehow ends up continuously at some job paying them $500,000 plus, $1 million plus when they can't coach football. This is actually a good hire. John T. Bates, that is hilarious. We've had an SEC D-line and a Sun Belt offensive line. Yeah, you're right. Jonathan Benton said, I heard we were pushing hard for Eric McClain. Eric McClain is a fantastic analyst. He is Clemson through and through. And I'm not going to say that the guy would not do great. Right now is the time for Dabo Sweeny to go in and hire people who have experience, especially big-time experience. Matt Luke is your man. You get Matt Luke, you give him a few years, don't you be surprised when defensive lines, no matter where they're at, no matter what school they're at, no matter what conference, are sitting there going, we got our hands full, guys. We're going to get our heads ripped off today. Oh, no. I don't know how we're going to deal with their offensive line. Their offensive line they're maniacs. That's what you'll get with a Matt Luke hire. Dabo needs to not go back and hire any former players right now. The only way he needs to hire a former player is someone like Chancey Stuckey, who's actually proven himself at Notre Dame. And Chancey Stuckey's he's not going to come back to Clemson. His next move's probably the NFL. So, Greg Larkin, what did I miss? Former Georgia offensive line coach, former Georgia player. He was also former Ole Miss head coach, but after he was fired from Ole Miss, he went back to Georgia where he played and was an assistant before that. His offensive line coach, Matt Luke, he won the national he was the offensive line coach when they won the national championship back in 21? So he stepped away from the game just because he was burned out. He's taken some time off, spend time with his family. He is a legitimate candidate to replace Thomas Austin at offensive line coach. That is great news, folks. So, Dogman said Luke played at Ole Miss. For some reason, I thought he played at Georgia. I guess my information was wrong. Thanks for correcting me. Chuck Lawrence. Absolutely be a great fit at O-line. We definitely need to make a move at wide receiver coach. Like you said, there's no development at all recently. Folks, I am telling you right now, I don't want people fired from their job, okay? Period. I don't want that. But if you want to see Sweeny make a move that he should have made 2 years ago, every year. So he's just firing a coach here, and then we wait a year. Oh, we knew that guy was not cut out for his role. We'll fire him next year. Oh, well, this guy's not. What? Hey, while we're revamping the team, how about we do it as a whole so we don't waste eligibility of players, and so we're not dropping games that we shouldn't, and there's player development and all that good stuff. What we're doing is we're firing one coach, and everybody talks about Lemansky. I think that was more of just, hey, I want to do things maybe a little different, maybe a different opportunity. I don't see Lemansky Hall, from what I understand, it's not really a firing, is what I understand. He thanked Clemson afterwards, hey, blah, 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 whether you meant it or not. Thomas Austin, did he ever release a statement? I don't know. But we need to make the proper moves now. We have to make the proper moves now. Can you imagine all the wide receivers coaches who would love to come to Clemson with this move? You have this. If Matt Luke accepts the job, he comes to Clemson. Can you imagine a wide receiver coach going, hey, man, it might take a couple of years, but this guy will give my wide receivers time to get open? Sign me up. Sign me up. Well, folks, I'm excited about this. I told you so. I'm going to go here. Some of you knew it and you agree with me. Some of you think that the job is just so hard that Dabo was just down there going, nobody wants to come play off. Nobody wants to come coach for Clemson. So I guess I'm going to have to go hire an offensive coach, positional coach from one of my former players. It's just, oh man, we called them, we contacted them, they won't return our call. Thoughts? Sweeney's learning a lesson. I said this yesterday. And we all make mistakes. We all have to grow. Sweeny is having to learn you can't just hire someone because fill in the blank other than experience and they're qualified for the role. Tony Elliott had so many people around him. When he took over the offensive coordinator position, he had people around him who were qualified, who had done the job before, whatever their role was. Even if it was on the defensive side of the ball, and you go, hold on, how does that transcend? Because you have a defensive coach, but you're the offensive coordinator. Can you imagine Tony Elliott having to sit down and look at Brent Venables? Because these coaches do this, by the way. They talk about it openly. An offensive coordinator will go sit down with the defensive coordinator and go, hey, man, what drives you crazy? What drives you crazy when you see it? When you see this play called? Or how would you break down, if I ran this play against you, what would be your response to it? They do that. It's called planning. It's called strategy. It's called working out a game plan. But that's not what happened. And I know that's what's been touted to us. Well, I hired Tony, and Tony he'd never been offensive coordinator before, but who was the supporting cast? It was pretty impressive, right? I mean, I'm asking you. He had the supporting cast. Who does he have now? He has a bunch of first-year and inexperienced coaches trying to run an elite offense. And I think Garrett Riley probably had to look at him and go, bro, I can't do this anymore. You brought me in here, and I didn't get to bring any of my hires. And we had this little experiment. I will tell you this, Sweeny is getting anxious. You want to know why? It's because we, including myself, never thought he would have fired Brandon Streeter. And he is tired of his own experiment. Do I think he should move faster with a wide receiver coach move? Absolutely. I think now is the time. Because if I'm Thomas Austin and I got fired yesterday or Wednesday, whenever it happened, do you know what I would have replied to him? So, hey, coach, while I'm on my way out, do you want me to stop by Tyler's office and tell him he's going to? Because if you're getting rid of me, you're definitely getting rid of him. If I'm Tyler Grisham's family and I say that, you think I'm a jerk. I'm not being a jerk to you. You've had a ton of success, made a ton of money, unless you blew it all. But you couldn't blame Thomas Austin if that was his reply. The time is now for wide receiver coach as well. And it's just too much too soon. But If Matt Luke comes to Clemson, I believe this could be incredible. The upside for Clemson and our offensive production and being able to line up at will and move. You don't even have to do that, Philadelphia push thing that they're doing with Jalen Hurts. You just line up, and it's just like, we just moved their defensive line 3 yards at will. I mean, you could be drunk and start stumbling forward, and you're going to pick up 3 or 4 yards just because the offensive line is that good. So, folks, this is great news. I hope it comes to pass that Matt Luke is hired as Clemson offensive line coach. I don't know if it's going to be a done deal, but hopefully. So, folks, you take care of yourself. There's a big game going on tonight. I don't know if you've heard about that. Did you hear about that big game that's going on tonight? I know it's crazy. It's tonight, 8:00. Oregon and Washington, number 5 versus number 3. This is actually a big game. This will be an enjoyable game. Then you've got rumors like our former quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, possibly going to Oregon or Florida State. There'll be a lot to talk about there. Folks, thank you so much. I hope you've subscribed. It's free. There's a join button below. If you're on an Apple product, you won't see it. But, yeah, it's really, really cheap. Even when Christmas come up, you could still support the show and you'd be like, oh, man, that was, I don't even miss it. Also, check out 4puttcards.com. Their link is below. As always, go Tigers.